Now I'd like to invite Padraig to make a few remarks, and then we'll have a Q&A afterwards.
Firstly, I'd obviously like to thank the Philosophical Society and Trinity College. I do appreciate the Honorary Patronage. It's an interesting time. I've received 3 doctorates before, and I'm actually quite happy that this is a patronage, because we have a kind of running joke that if somebody goes down injured, sick, and they ask for a doctor, and there's not a doctor there, my caddy's always pointing out, well, I've got 3, so I take precedent over him for the kiss of life on a random person. So an honorary patronage is definitely a one-up of that. It's interesting as well, obviously the greatest success for me obviously was 2007, 2008 when I won my 3 majors, and I've had some good successes along the way. I do appreciate this all the more because I've had slightly a lean period of late, and it's nice when you receive an award and you're winning lots of things, it kind of goes over your head a bit, but when you receive an award and maybe a little bit of the leaner times, it's much more appreciated. So thank you very much, guys. Now, I know I'm going to get questions and answers, and I decided that I prepare a little something to say beforehand that maybe a little bit, maybe hopefully of interest, maybe a little bit more on a kind of, I don't know if it's a serious note, but basically what kind of makes me tick, or what makes me successful at what I do in sport and golf. Hopefully you might reflect on this and see that it kind of crosses through everything you do. So what's the most important thing in order to become a professional athlete? We do, by the way, golfers love to call themselves athletes. Now that we're possibly in the Olympics, we say athletes a lot. We have a little chip, actually a big chip on our shoulder, about the fact that we're not really at times considered to be sportsmen. So what's the most important thing for any sportsman? It's confidence. No doubt about it. Confidence is everything. So to be successful, you need confidence. A lot of people misjudge what that means, though. A lot of times people take confidence and they look at what is external. So if somebody says you're good, that gives you confidence. If you get good results, that gives you confidence. All those things tend to be outside your control and end up being very fickle. People who rely on external things to make them confident tend to have a lot of highs and lows. When things are going well, everybody's patting them on the back. Well done. When things are going badly, you know, it's a slap in the backside. Always remember that a pat in the back is only a foot away from a slap in the backside. So, you know, the highs and lows are always there if you're worried about external things. So what, as a sportsman, or what everybody should know, there's some very, very successful sportsmen who rely very much on external factors. You'll see guys who are goal scorers in the Premiership. When they're scoring goals, they score more goals. They're always worried about the results, the figures, what's happening. Whereas the most important thing, I won't say the most important because, as I said, external works, but you've got to concentrate on the internal things. Internal self-confidence. It's all about self-confidence. Now, what is self-confidence? Everything you control really is self-confidence. Usually it comes down to, you know, who you are, what you're doing every day. For me, you've got to create a reality, your own reality. So if I would break it down into mantras. Like I would say this to myself on the golf course when I'm going around there. I would say, you know, be myself, trust myself, accept myself, calm, confident, relaxed, focused. Now, be myself, if I break that down, it's if I get my preparation before a tournament right. So I don't over-practice, don't overdo it. Now, you guys won't understand that with exams because you don't get your preparation right, you just cram. But obviously, if you got your preparation right, you go into an exam and you wouldn't be stressed. So that's what I'm saying about preparation. If you do your preparation, whatever that is for you, it leads to a relaxed feeling and self-confidence. So I get my preparation right. I get my strategy. I actually set my strategy outside a tournament. So I'm not in the middle of the heat of battle, under pressure, panicking, and start changing my mind. I actually set up how I'm going to do things outside of the actual competition. Now I'll set parameters so that I can change and be fluid during the competition, but everything that's changing in the environment I've set outside. Again, that means when I get there on the first tee I feel very comfortable about myself. Preparation, strategy, routine. Routine is exactly what I do to hit every golf shot. So I take 2 practice swings, I look at the target, I visualize the target, I hit the shot. It gives you comfort when you have a routine. It's very comforting to do the same thing over and over in a little section. It just gives comfort. Again, as you can see, once I'm doing those things, I feel comfortable. The last part of that is acceptance. So if I do my preparation strategy and routine right, and I hit a terrible golf shot, I've got to be happy. I've got to be accepting of it. I can't change my, there's no point in not accepting it. As long as I've done everything in the run-up to it, I've got to accept the result, good or bad. So, as I said, there's a little mantra, but the huge part about self-confidence, I can tell my biggest competitor all my secrets, all the things that I think you should be doing. And the key is, I know after a week, he'll stop doing it, or 2 weeks, because it's very hard day in, day out to live these things. So what am I talking about? I believe, and believe this or not, I believe if you smile, and if I hit a bad shot in the right hand rough on the first hole in the trees, if I walk off the tee box with a smile, I'll get a better lie. That would probably be quite a good one for the Philosophical Society, How can I change an innate object that's finished in the trees, it's already gone there, how can I change that to be a better lie? Well, if I smile, as I walk down there, I'm looking forward to the next shot. It's all about the next shot. People who tend to be angry, grumpy, whatever you want, tend to be looking back. They tend to be saying, well, how did I hit it in the trees? What did I do wrong? Somebody who's smiling is thinking, okay, this is an opportunity to hit a great golf shot. So if you go down there grumpy, you look at it and you're annoyed you're in the trees, you're annoyed you made a bad swing, I guarantee you're looking at the glass half empty and you think, oh God, that's a terrible lie. Because you're angry, you're not going to see all your options. Because you're angry, you're not going to pick your right option. And because you're angry, you've picked the wrong option and then you're going to execute it poorly. If you go down there smiling, you're very open. Whenever you find the glass is half full, you're delighted to find the golf ball that it's not out of bounds or something. Then you see all your options, because when you're in a good mood, you do see your options. When you're angry, you see very little of your options. And lastly, when you selected that option, being in a good mood helps you execute it properly. So without a doubt, I'm in a better position if I smile walking off the tee box. Now, I can tell anybody that, and for a week they'll do it, but after a week, it's so easy to be grumpy, it's so easy to be down on yourself. So smiling, genuinely, I tell my kids, it's the one thing in life, smiling is free and it gets you so far. You're in a row or something with somebody at some reception or something, smile. It gets you a long way. Smiling is very, very important. But people don't do it because it takes a bit of effort. So there's no doubt, like, if you want to be self-confident, you've got to have a good posture. You watch me on the golf course, I'm not allowed to lean on my putter, so I'm not allowed to ever be like this. I have to keep my hands free. I generally put them in front of me, get my shoulders back, and stand up like I'm confident. And that gets into your subconscious. Here's a good one. I feel lucky on the golf course. So, again, your Philosophical Society, this will be an interesting one. You can try this as an experiment. Everything I do on the golf course, I try and make it out to be lucky. So if I hit a tee shot into a divot, I say, God, that's great, because it now means I've got to hit a low shot in here and I've got to I create it being lucky. Whereas most people, when things aren't going, when things are going for you and you've got this external confidence, bad things don't happen and you kind of brush over them when they happen. But you've got to control that internally, and that's why every situation I will try. I will genuinely stand and write down a little note before I go out in the tournament, right, I've got to be lucky. And everything I see happen, I'm lucky. So if I hit it in the trees and it ricochets around and it finishes underneath a bush and I can't play it, well, I was lucky I didn't lose the ball. So there's always a reason to be lucky. You just have to find it. And believe it or not, the more you do it, the better results you get. Everything, it carries through in everything. So by creating that, again, being a bit optimistic, it falls in that you find the good in a lot of things. And you find optimism, and you actually end up, you are lucky. I am a lucky person. If I keep telling myself that, believe it or not, I will be, because you might say, well, the cards are going to fall as they fall, but the fact is I'm going to see them differently to the next person and believe that that's actually to my advantage. So definitely feeling lucky, creating an attitude that you feel lucky, getting your good posture, smiling, being happy, all help you be self-confident internally, and it's a day-to-day thing. You cannot, somebody here will go away and say, you know what, I'm going to try and smile a bit more, but it's in 3 weeks' time, when it gets a bit boring, that you have to make the effort. It's in 3 weeks' time where you have to stay optimistic, because it's easy to do it tomorrow because it's new. It's when it gets tired that it's hard to be disciplined and do the good things. A good point on being self-confident, you might like this as college students, you've got to celebrate your success. Very important, when you do something successfully, you enjoy it. It's very easy for you to do things and in my case, I could win a tournament and I could be sitting in my hotel room that night at 10 o'clock at night, looking at the four walls, thinking about, oh, what do I need to practice tomorrow, or something like that. That's not what your body wants to hear, not what your subconscious mind wants. It wants you successful, it wants you to enjoy it. So if you go out there and enjoy it, I'm not saying I enjoy it do enjoy it as long as you can, but obviously there's discipline to get back. But go and enjoy it, because that's telling your subconscious mind, hey, that was good. I did something right. I got to celebrate. I got to enjoy it. I'll do that again. Whereas if your subconscious mind is all it's getting is sitting in a room looking at the four walls, worrying about the game after you win, why would it bother doing that again? So that was no fun. So a couple of times there I mentioned that it said, we've got to concentrate on the internal stuff, the self-confidence stuff. We've got to obviously watch out for the external stuff. It's much easier to get into the fickle stuff, the highs and lows. If somebody tells you you're great, you're great. They tell you, I have never read anything written about me since I'm 18 years of age. An article was written about me that I didn't like, it upset me, and I lost a match. I can't control what the journalists write, but I can control myself in not reading it. Now, the reason I don't do that is I don't want to let the journalists, if you listen to a journalist who's writing good stuff about it, especially the ones who write good stuff, they build you up and you believe it. And then when they write something innocuously bad about you, it hurts so badly. You get knocked back so much. So by not allowing myself to be built up by people who have less than perfect knowledge. Like, I know myself, if I'm watching a football match, I'd say, what is he doing playing? Like, what's the manager thinking? He's rubbish. But that's just a casual opinion. Now, if I said it to the guy, it would actually be quite hurtful. I know I don't know more than the manager, but I'm still going to have that opinion, because that's life. That's what you do when you're socialising. But the sports person or the individual should never allow himself Twitter. Twitter is very important to the modern sports person, because, I don't know, I can't believe I'm going to say this, because it's worth money to them. How big your Twitter account depends on, will automatically increase what sponsorship you get. Okay? They will tell you, oh, we're talking directly to the public, that's why we like to do it, we've got more control over it. But in the end of the day, the bigger Twitter account, the bigger the ego, the bigger the sponsorship. So it's all about that. But can you understand, I don't read newspapers because of the effect that a journalist can have on me. The journalists are actually experts in their field. Now, some people would debate that, but the journalists are experts in their field because somebody's actually paying them to write something about golf. Whereas people who are talking to you on Twitter range from all sorts. And how I see footballers going on and they're off after 20 minutes, but what can they expect? Because you're now letting yourself open to a huge array of opinions from very knowledgeable people, some not so knowledgeable, some people with different outlooks. How anybody can let themselves open to that because of the effect, the external effect, and you have no control over it. So that's, Twitter and things like that are, it shouldn't make it harder, but it takes a little bit of discipline. So if I'm reading a newspaper article, I can read about somebody else, but I can't read about myself. And I read the article and I believe everything that's written in it when I read about somebody else. Of course, I know that they don't really know the facts, but I still believe it when I read it. Gossip is a great thing. I mentioned there a couple of times about self-confidence and the power of the subconscious mind. This is quite a debated one, Again, probably as a philosophical society, you might have thought more than the regular people about this. Power of subconscious mind is very dangerous, but very effective. Now, what do I mean by that? I'll give you a very practical example. There's no doubt what you believe deep down, you will move towards that. unfortunately for a lot of people, they don't know what they believe deep down, or they get carried along, they drift. So it's very important to set goals, and maybe for you guys this might be a reason. If you set a goal, what most people are afraid with goals is they think they must get it right. So you're all here and you're thinking, you've gone to college, you selected this course. When you selected it, you made a goal to do this course. Maybe you thought you were going to go on and do X job. The fact that you have a vision to do a certain thing is good. It doesn't have to be right. It just means you don't drift. So you can change your mind and change your goals, but please have some goals, because you'll only drift and you'll end up, drifting is not a good idea. Always have some purpose, but you don't have to feel like you have to get it right now. Nobody really truly knows what they'd love to do in 10 years' time. But have an idea of something you would like to do, move towards that. Things change. But the main thing is to do set a goal. So essentially to move towards whatever you believe. Your subconscious mind, this is a great thing about your subconscious mind, it believes everything it's told. Black and white, yes and no, correct, it's either right or wrong. There's no grey area with your subconscious mind. So whatever you're thinking, it actually believes is honest to God truth. So you can tell yourself, and you know yourself, how many people have you been talking to and they're convinced of something, and actually they're wrong, but they actually believe it. You can convince yourself. Murderers have convinced themselves. You can be guaranteed that some of the worst despots in the world actually think they're very nice people. So your subconscious mind can convince you of anything. So don't drift in that. Have some purpose. Now I'm going to give you an example of what I mean about that. Obviously, one of the easiest ways to control your subconscious mind is visualize. When I won the Open Championship in 2007, I got into a playoff. It was a playoff, and I'm actually waiting for the playoff. I'm sitting I've messed up on the 72nd hole. Big mess up, big choke. Felt horrible about myself. Really, I've never felt, it's the worst I've ever felt on the golf course. I felt embarrassed because I hit a bad tee shot. So what? Everybody can hit a bad shot. Don't worry about it. Go on. Hit the next shot. The next shot I hit a very bad shot. It was difficult, but I hit a very bad shot. Now I feel like I've choked. I genuinely want the ground to open up. I just want to disappear. My caddy, I'd worked with my caddy, and we had a lot of mantras, a lot of cliches. It's not over yet. Let's see how this pans out. One shot at a time. All cliches. But he kept at it. For 50 yards, I wanted to strangle him. That was it. The next 50 yards, for whatever reason, I was listening but indifferent. And the last 50 yards, I actually believed him, and I got back in the zone, which was great. But I know I'm going long-winded, but so I get into the playoff. I'm actually in the recorder's hut. There's a little porter cabin when you sign your card. They have a TV, which they switched off because they think I'm so low that the commentators will be showing it and replaying it and saying what I did wrong and all that sort of stuff. But I actually got them to turn the TV back on without the sound, because again, I didn't want to listen to what they were saying, but I needed to see whether Sergio Garcia coming down the last made a par to win the tournament. He ended up with about a 10-foot putt, 8-foot putt to beat me. And this is the key here. Is at no stage when I was watching that putt did I wish that he missed the putt, which is strange. Now, I'm not saying I've been that good all my life. Oftentimes I would hope the guy, certainly hope he misses, let's say. All I said when I was sitting there is, I'm going to win the Open Championship. I'm going to win this Open Championship. A lot of times I held my hand up out the golf course and visualised me holding the trophy. So I'm visualising I'm going to win the Open Championship. I'm going to win the Open Championship. Now, logically I knew he had to miss for me to win. But at no stage did I go down the logical road. I'm going to win the Open Championship. Forget about him, I'm going to win the Open Championship. That was my mantra, I'm going to win. Now, yes, he needed to miss for me to win, but I didn't want to get negative on myself. I didn't want to get any of this, you kind of can get in a bit of a spiral. If you're wanting other people to play badly, it's nearly encouraging you to play badly and you go downhill. So I wanted to win the Open. He missed the putt, came in, signed his card, and we both went to the first tee. Now I know this is in hindsight, but a lot of people came back to me afterwards and says, on the first tee, there was only one winner. You were the guy, you looked like a winner. The eyes, you can see, if you ever do get to see it, the eyes aren't popping out of my head. Like I'm just lit up, unbelievably lit up. But the key is, I was going to win the Open Championship without any conditions. And that was the key, the no conditions. Most people, if they visualize something, they visualize, you could visualize passing an exam. Okay, I'm going to pass this exam. But I guarantee you, you'll put a condition on how you pass the exam. And that's one of the things, because once the condition fails, then your power of your subconscious mind will reverse it. So I said I'm going to win the Open Championship. Most people who would say that are going to go, well, I'm going to hit a lovely tee shot in the first hole, I'm going to hit a lovely iron shot in, I'm going to hold the putt, I'm going to make a beautiful birdie. And they tend to always be very beautiful, everything is perfect when you're visualizing. And then I'm going to do this. I couldn't care less if Sergio fell into the burn on the first hole. I was going to win. The no conditions was the key factor. So I could actually take a double bogey at the first hole, but I was still going to win. And that was the key. I didn't mind how it was going to happen, I was just going to do it. And that took all the pressure off me. Because if I stood up and says, well, I'm going to hit a beautiful shot down the first fairway, then I'm going to hit a lovely shot on the green and hold the putt. Well, if I hit it in the right-hand rough on the first hole, all that's saying to my subconscious mind, you said you were going to win by hitting the fairway. You've missed the fairway, that means you're going to lose. So that's why people who've used their subconscious mind, and it's a very effective tool, it is very dangerous. It can fail you so quickly if you get it the wrong way around. So it's a it's a great tool to use, and it's 100% important. Whatever you believe, you will move towards it. But you've got to be actually, as much as it's your subconscious mind, you've got to be very conscious of your control of it and not let it get away from you. You know, anything else really, you know, pressure? Maybe somebody was going to ask me about pressure later. The great thing about pressure, you'll do very little in your life that's on, everything that's in the middle in your life, you'll have no pressure. The only time you have pressure, stress, nerves are when anything exciting is happening. Now it could be exciting bad, exciting good. So you're living your life when you feel pressure. So if anything, when you're doing your exams, you'll feel a bit of pressure. Well, that actually means you're living, because the likelihood is in 40 years' time you'll still remember. You only remember the times you're under pressure. And the good things, your first kiss, how much pressure are you under, how much nerves, that's the sort of thing you remember because of the pressure. So anytime you feel nervous, it should be a little flag to your brain, hang on a second, this is good, I'm living. Don't be running away from nerves. Nerves are good. Nerves means you're out there enjoying it. As regards, if you want to control pressure, easiest way to control pressure is actually stay in the present. Now that could be, I know that's a kind of statement to stay in the present, but actually genuinely staying in the pressure or staying in the present. So if I was to stay in the, say I was very nervous about, coming down the last hole, I need to make par to win. I'm very worried that I've got a difficult putt from 25 feet and I might three putt or something's up. Well, I concentrate on my right foot's going ahead of my left foot. I know that sounds silly, but if you're concentrating on what you're physically doing at this moment, I'm looking up to the back of the room. If you're actually in those, I'm looking at my fingers, I'm waving my hands. If you concentrate on what you're doing in the very second, you can't, because pressure is only about the outcome. You're worried about what's happening in the future. If you're in the minute, you won't feel that. So if you're under pressure, just bring it down. You know, people would say, oh, well, take a few deep breaths. Well, by concentrating on deep breaths, you're staying in the present. That's really what they're... Yes, it does help to relax deep breaths, but more so the fact that you're actually concentrating on something different right now in the moment. So that can be anything. Just remember that if you stay in the present, you can't get too nervous about the future because you can't get ahead of yourself. A little bit about pressure, being in the zone. Essentially, again, I'm trying to relate some of these to exams or whatever. Being in the zone, it's essentially, you can't be in the zone, I've got to get this right, yeah. You can't be in the zone if you're in your left brain. So your left brain is your analytical, you're thinking things through, you're working things out. You need to be in your right brain to be in the zone where everything is artistic and flowing, creative. As I always, well, not as I always say actually, the right brain obviously is the more feminine side of the brain, and we should always realise that women are always right. That's actually maybe the most profound lesson here tonight. Women are always right. Right brain, feminine side. So without a doubt, if you want to be in the zone, if you want to be there, you actually have to give yourself time. It's not a light switch. You can't just turn off your analytical side of your brain. You actually have to work diligently on being a bit more free-flowing, a bit more creative. So what I'm saying to you is, somebody going out playing golf, it might be more practical. Instead of going to the range and working on their golf swing, they'd be actually probably better off drawing a picture. Because drawing a picture would obviously be creative, being in the right side, so when they get in the golf course, they'll see their shots more, they'll visualise better, they'll pick the right clubs. Whereas if they start working on their technique, their mind is active and actually doesn't calm down when they're on their golf course. And you know, you want to have a nice calm brain if you're in the zone. There's not much more. Well, I could actually say a bit more, but I'll take a few questions, and if there's not enough questions, I can get back to a few more different things. Experience, an interesting one. Most people, you know, always want a bit of experience. Well, winning is a habit. Believe it or not, you learn very little from winning. You actually learn massively from losing, because losing is so painful. You have to sit back and reflect. Now, some people will lose and never want to have that experience again. Their subconscious mind will take over. Because they hated the experience of losing so much, their subconscious mind will sabotage any chance of them getting into contention forever. Because they just do not want the feeling of coming down the last, messing up in front of people and have people say, oh, you choked, you did this. They don't want it so much. They had it once, they don't want it again. They'll make sure they never get into that position again. Winning is a habit. No doubt you learn from losing. Most of you guys, you know, and this will come when you leave school, you need experience. You know, could be 22 years of age, you need experience at this job when you apply for it. Well, you're too young for experience, and unfortunately at times, by the time you get experience, you're too old. So you have to get that experience by cheating it from somebody else. So watch other people, learn what they're doing, learn from their mistakes, read books. There's loads of ways that other people have made those mistakes that you can learn from, rather than you making those mistakes. There's no doubt your actual personal mistakes will be the ones you learn most from, but yes, there's other ways of learning from other people's mistakes. It's just a question of maybe putting a bit of effort in, reading the right books. Some people will say autobiographies, and every self-help book that's out there, I don't think I've ever picked one up that there's not one point in it, at least, that's a good point that can help you. So some have many, but it's always worthwhile. A lot of that stuff will just help you move along and gain experience, get ahead of the curve, rather than you having to learn the hard way. And as I said, why be experienced when you're old? Why not be experienced when you're young? So cheat it a little bit and learn from everybody else. I talked a little bit about goal setting. Just don't drift. It doesn't have to be right. That's the key thing about goals. People think you've got to get it right. Nobody gets it right. Don't worry about getting it right. It's just having a bit of purpose. Business and sport, that's an interesting one. You know, when I'm doing a talk to business people, sports people, is certainly the physiology to say you need 6 weeks off between 1 year and the next year in order not to carry the stress from 1 year into the next. Now, business people look at that and say, well, how can I get 6 weeks off? Well, the CEO can become the janitor for the 6 weeks. It's just 6 weeks away from what you do. In college, that's pretty much set in there because you get your summer break and things like that. So that's what stress is, running 1 year into another. When you see a footballer burn out or even get injured, because that's usually the subconscious way of stopping you when you're getting burnt out, is actually to make sure you get injured. So a lot of times footballers will play through the summer when they're playing a World Cup or a European Cup. They start off the season and they'll play well for about a month or two, then they hit a wall and they get injured. You know, sometimes little injury, sometimes serious, but will take them out for a while. That's a sign that they didn't get a break. You need a break in order not to build up that stress. Difference between generally a businessman and a sports person. As a sports person, and you'll love this because you will actually all think you're a sports person now in a second. 12 hours sleep, most sports people operate on. Absolutely, whereas businessmen operate 4 to 6 hours sleep. So both of us are under stress, but sports people will sleep forever at night, and then probably the most effective way is sleeping in the afternoon. So oftentimes, yeah, I told you you'd like it. So it's a two sleep, for the physical side, a two window sleep where you're getting the 8 to 10 hours at night, and then an hour to 2 hours in the afternoon is the way a lot of sports people will work, whereas a business person is on 4, 5, 6 hours sleep a night. Very rare to see anything different. Okay, just looking down here at my note. The difference between wanting something and liking something, again, this is going bits of your subconscious mind. If you want something, you will move mountains to go there. If you like something, if it happens, be nice. If it happens, whatever. So always be careful that, again, to make a conscious choice. And the interesting thing is, some people think they would like things, but they really, really wouldn't want it. So sometimes, and it's very hard to do this, but like, I look at, pops. Well, in my own sport, there's a lot of guys who are physically pretty gifted at golf, who aren't successful professional golfers because they don't like the life. They don't want to travel. They don't want to be in hotels. They don't want to be away from home. Maybe they've got a wife and kids. They just don't want that. They think they do, but they actually sabotage their own careers because they really don't want to go to it. Same with being, pop stars and things like that. The continuous judging. Like if you look at most pop star careers, they'll come out with a very successful album, maybe a second successful album, and obviously, without the use of drugs, there really isn't a third successful album. but you think about it, if you looked at a lot of pop stars and artists, to be creative, it's the judgment that goes with it. And do they really want this lifestyle? They think they do, but when you see them falling off the rails after a while, that's pretty much what's happened. That it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. Tends to be quite a bit different, and yet everybody says, "Oh, gee, it'd be great to be a rock star," but it can be. There's a lot of tough things behind the scenes that people don't see, and the nearly constant judging is probably the hardest thing. As I said, I try and stay away from it. I'm in a nice area, but I try and stay away from any of the judging by not reading it, not trying to get involved in it. Well, I suppose again, if you're a pop star and you're on Twitter, you're going to get the judgment. So it's avoiding the judging and things like that. So you just got to be careful about what you want and what you like. Okay, any questions? I could go on for longer. Keep rabbiting. Only difficult questions.
There's a few off the back there, I think.
Here's one in the blue here. This man is perfect.
Sorry, no, I was watching you putting one time, and I noticed you put your left hand at the bottom when you're putting, is that right? Yeah,
I changed that the day I turned pro, which just kind of sets up my weird personality. Very few people. The physical first competition I ever played as a pro, I changed to left hand below right. Technically, if you were starting the game of golf, it's a better way to do it because it squares up your shoulders. But technically, you'd be better off putting looking at the hole rather than the golf ball. So that would be kind of weird, but it's actually physically a better way of doing it. I obviously started as a young person a different way, and I would find it mentally very hard to change away from it. But if you're really not a very good putter, look at the hole where you're putting, and you'll actually be better. Because you're not going to miss the golf ball. It's not like it's physically hard to hit the golf ball. Look at the hole and off you go. And if you look at a kid who doesn't know much better, who picks up a club at 12 years of age, they'll always be cranked. Their head will be like that as they're putting. They'll always be looking at everything out there. If you think about any sport, well, not any sport, but most sports, you're looking at the target. Like, you're looking at, like archery, archers aren't looking at their hand, they're looking at the target. So a lot of sports are with a target, you look at it. In golf, certainly you could be a lot better at putting if you do that.
What's your favorite golf course in the world?
Royal Portrush is my favourite course in Ireland. It's a joy to play, and I know this is really, really, really bad cliche, really. I would think I could come up with something more imaginative, but it is the best golf course, Augusta. Augusta National is without doubt. It intimidates you no end. It's in beautiful condition. It's a beautiful looking golf course. It has everything. So unfortunately I say that it's not that easy to go and play Augusta, but Augusta is definitely right up. It would be my favourite. And an awesome tournament as well. Yes, the lady.
Do you feel equally confident in like times of success and failure?
Obviously not, but I have to work constantly on not getting too high with the success, because if you get too high, obviously the failure, it seems so far away from it. So if that was the norm and success was there and failure was here, I'm trying to bring them closer to each other by being disciplined. And again, as I said, it's hugely focusing on what I'm doing personally, internally, what I can control. When it gets away from you, and if you see somebody with that personality who's got highs and lows, you know, they're bouncing off the walls up and down, that's absolutely where they're so worried about what other people are thinking. Whereas, I won't say it's hard not to pay attention to what other people think, but it is really what you think about yourself is what matters. If you can look at yourself in the morning in the mirror and be happy with yourself, that's what really counts. And unfortunately, personally, that's the best way to go about it. I'm sure, as I said, there's some real despots in the world. A great example of that, actually, I know I'm going to a golf analogy, but I can get, like anybody else, you can get down when it's not going well, and you know, as my caddy described it, two different ways he described it one day. He said to me, you know, he says, "You're like Dobby, do you want to iron your hands?" That's how miserable I was on the golf course, that, you know, things weren't going. And another day I came off the golf course, you know, and I haven't played well, and this is, you know, 6-7 years ago, you know, and he pointed out to me, he says, you know, Saddam Hussein thinks he's a nicer person than you are. And it was very true. I just hit a bad putt, maybe 3 putt at the last, and like, I'm miserable. And like, somebody else, you know, people are doing horrible things. It's all about your outlook. And I explained that a little bit. This is really weird. This is exceptionally weird. My wife will testify to this. If a professional golfer, 3 putts to last to shoot 69, great score, 69, 3 putts to last, he will be much more miserable than a professional golfer who birdies the last to shoot 70. So the guy who shot the better score is miserable because he only remembers what happened at the last moment. He 3-putted the last, missed an opportunity. The guy who shot 70, he birdied the last, he feels great. So we're very, very, very fickle, as in we're so much influenced what the last thing that happened. Did I have a good tournament last week? Did I win the tournament? So it's very easy, as I said, to get those highs and lows. And I'm not saying that nobody's perfect, and nobody would want to be perfect. It'd be boring. But you try and control that it doesn't get too far away from you. And there's no doubt when you have failure, you have to work an awful lot harder. Than the good days are easy. The bad days are the ones you have to sit back, concentrate. One of the things that when I play in the US, a lot of Europeans have failed miserably going to the US. Good golfers. Because life is very convenient in the States. You can eat in the same, you can stay in the same hotel every week in terms of the decor. When you walk into the room, it's the same chain, it's the same bedclothes, same beds, everything is the same. The rest, you don't need to talk to anybody because you can drive down the road, there's always a restaurant, and you know exactly, as you cross the threshold of the restaurant and you're walking into that restaurant, you know exactly what you're going to pay and you know exactly what experience you're going to get. So life is very convenient, but that actually transfers into convenient, transfers into boring. I have a friend who caddies for me and he travels with me to the States, so we tend to get out and try and do stuff. We make an effort, you know, to go to, you know, to a game or just generally try and get out of the routine. That doesn't happen so much in Europe because if you don't ask somebody in Europe where to go to eat, you're going to likely find a bad restaurant. You've got to say, hey, did you find a good place to eat? Where are we staying next week? And of course everybody's staying in the same place, so, you know, is there a good place to eat? Yeah, sure, why don't you come with us? We found a good place last night. And so there's a much more social context in Europe. In the States it can get very convenient, guys going for drive-through, takeaway, room service. A good example, in the States you can have room service and it always comes hot. Try that in Europe. So, you know, that's an interest, you know, convenient can sometimes run into boring. So next time things are going a bit haywire, just think, well, at least this is exciting, you know. If it was, and bear in mind, I'm sure some of you guys have at this stage have had a year travelling around Europe. Maybe some of you is waiting till you're end of college. I guarantee you, if you have, or some of you have gone to the States to work, you know, for 3 months. The stories you most tell from that are the ones where things went hideously wrong. So, believe it or not, you're getting payback. So, you know, if you come home from the States and you, God, I was in this cockroach-infested hotel, you'd never believe that we stayed there. This, you know, so you actually, when things are going wrong, it might be terrible at the time, but you actually get value out of everything that's not the norm going down the road. You know, as I said, once it's not the norm, it tends to stick in your mind that that's what you're going to talk about. So I'm sure if anybody here has ever had a unfortunate to be, you know, maybe you got mugged or something like that, how many times have you told that story to somebody? God, you know, I can't believe they got my phone, or I can't believe, you know, this sort of, you tell both the good stuff and the bad stuff. It's the stuff in the middle nobody wants to hear about. So just remember that when things are going haywire, you're living your life and things are exciting. Any other questions?
Probably time for one last question.
Only one last. I talk for that long.
Time flew there, yeah.
I'll give 2 quick answers.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've watched it consistently for the last 10 years probably. And in 2007, 8, there was something that I noticed psychologically that you were so strong. Would you say you've lost a bit of that? And that's
No. Probably the most interesting question is about, everybody says, oh, you know, you won in 2007, 2008. Why haven't you won? I won once in 2007, 2 in 2008. Well, why didn't I win 3 in 2009? Or, you know, people think that there can be consistency. I was peaking in 2007 and 2008, and the fact is, if you peak, you got to come back off it. You can't continue to peak. It's impossible. It wouldn't be a peak if you can continue in that position. So there's no doubt I peaked in 2007, 2008, and there's no doubt I haven't peaked since then. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to peak again. And you just got to accept that things go up and down. Behind the scenes, I'm trying to improve the baseline, so that my next peak is higher or for longer. Now, the key is you can't try and improve at the peak. The peaks, they're just way up there. Things fall in place. Things are special. You know, there's a lot of things that come together when you peak. You just have to be patient and wait for that to come around. Now, interestingly, I changed, and this is one of the things. As I said, I don't read what's written about me, but when I'm continually asked about something, obviously I understand that that's what people are talking about. So a lot of people will come back and say, oh, you changed everything. I changed everything. The one thing consistent about me throughout my career is that I've continued to change. That's who I am. I get up tomorrow morning, I'm trying to make myself better. That's what drives me. That's what gets me up in the morning. Trying to change and get better. So I changed before I won the majors, I changed between the majors, and I continue to change. It was a little bit higher profile when I made the last changes, so people assumed that they were new. But they weren't new, they were just who I was. That's what gets me motivated to continue to go out there and work. What you saw was the very peak, and there's no doubt my eyes were popping out of my head and those things. I was buzzing, things were happening, I was in a good place, and it will happen again. I just have to be patient and do the stuff behind the scenes. Nobody, as I said, consistency, the only way to have consistency is to be mediocre. That's it. There's no way to have the highs. Nobody consistently is perfect. You wouldn't want to be. So, yes, highs and lows. There was one question, yes? He wore a jacket for me and everything.
When you're in contention or you're just playing a tournament, are you constantly in reaction mentally? Are you constantly talking to yourself and trying to get yourself into a peak mental area? Or is it like your physical game, when you go to a course for the day, you just play what you got? So are you relying on like mentally?
There's a lot of players will go with the physical side, that they're always tinkering with the physical. When I go to a tournament, it's all mental to me. So when I get on my preparation is all about getting my head in the right place. When I go on the golf course, depends how I'm playing. If I'm playing really well, some of my most successful rounds of golf, I've had to be told what score I'm shooting by the end of the round. Some of my most successful rounds of golf, I remember we played in Australia a long time ago. I broke the course record by 2 shots, and it stood for a long time. We played with a guy called Brett Ogle and Andrew Coulthard, and every single hole Brett Ogle told a joke. Every hole. So all I was doing was keeping my head away from the golf by chatting. I like to chat. So even if Like I will notice if I'm playing with a guy I don't like, you know, and I'm a bit in this group of, you know, God, I hope he misses type thing. I actually have to get rid of that and go and start talking to the guy. I don't care what. One of my favourites is actually oh, this isn't being recorded. This isn't going out on YouTube or anything like that. Or is it? I like to ask. I like to ask, you know. So how many guns do you own? That's quite, when you go to US tour, if you look at the bios, it's gun, hunting and fishing, hunting and fishing, hunting. Not too many Democrats. So it's all just getting away from, the last thing I want to do when I'm on the golf course, playing well, is think about golf. Just get out of the way, just let the golf happen. If things aren't going well, I will have to remind myself get back into it by doing things, by mantras. I said mantras. You know, you're lucky. Smile. Good posture. You know, I will actually make an effort with my caddy. There's cliches to get back into it. All mental. Always mental. Never physical. I never ever think of a physical thought when I'm on the golf course. It's all mental thoughts. And it says if things are going well, you're just trying to think the least you can. And that's the great days. You enjoy it. It goes. Flies along, and as I said, you're telling stories, and even if the guy doesn't want to talk to you, just keep talking. Again, you just smile and enjoy it. We'll take one more, go on.
Okay,
there's three more, four hands.
Maybe there's a lecture on after this though.
There's a lecture? I'll give you, what's the lecture in?
Psychoanalysis.
Maybe not.
If you're playing in the last group on a Sunday with Tiger and Phil, do you look forward to it because it's going to be lots of people, lots of media, or do you not look forward to it because it's going to be that more serious? Because you just said you're joking
it's a
around.
bit of everything. There's no doubt. It's harder. Like if you went to a golf tournament on Thursday and Friday, there's a little bit of, you know, a little bit of banter on the range. Saturday morning, everybody who's there is made the cut. Everybody, it's the life and soul of the world. It's telling jokes, a bit of fun. How's it going? Sunday morning, it's quiet. Payday. Guys are serious on a Sunday. So it's hard when you're in the final group not to be serious, but I would make an effort to try and talk to the guys. A good example, I was in the final group of one of my majors I won, and you'll figure these things out. It was a 3-ball, and one of the guys I pinpointed as not my competition. As in, as far as I was concerned, he wasn't the guy I was worried about. I stuck to him all day, chatting away to him. So I was, you know, by me talking, I'm helping myself. I'm probably helping him because, you know, it's lighthearted. And the other guy I was worried about, he was isolated. I wasn't going to be, you know, trying to lighten his day. I was trying to lighten my day with the other guys. So, you know, I would do that in the final group. I would do whatever it takes selfishly. Yes, with 6 or 9 hosts. A rising tide lifts all ships. It's incredible. So if I'm playing in a group early in the week, I want my playing partners to hold putts because I'm going to hold putts. I want them to make birdies because I'm going to see that and think, yeah, I can make birdies. Last 9 holes on a Sunday? No. I'm at best ignoring my playing partner. And as I said, hopefully that's all I'm doing. You know, I don't want to get negative and wish he misses, but there's no doubt with 9 holes to go, it gets very serious, much more so than it's all happy days. And sometimes you will see some of the big players and it's all happy days because they know they're going to win. So they're being nice to the guy because, hey, they're going to win anyway. But if it gets down to the nitty gritty, the conversation stops and, you know, people get into their own thing. So
I'm afraid that's all we have time for. But listen, on behalf of the Phil and everyone here, I think I'd just like to thank Padraig and Caroline and Katie for coming out here. Thank you very much for your compelling speech and for taking all the questions. We're immensely proud in the Phil to have you. And one of the greatest Irish sports people of all time. And such a great ambassador for sport. And to have you as the latest Honorary Patron. So please, a final round of applause from support.